Why don't we just take all the homeless people and put them on an island? That's what I've been wondering in the recent weeks. And so apparently has the city of Miami. Um, a few weeks ago, they voted to pursue a pilot program to build a designated zone for people experiencing homelessness. The program calls for the construction of 50 to 100 tiny homes on Virginia Key, an 863-acre barrier island. The location is home to a summer camp for kids, a sewage plant is not too far away, and right across the water is one of the most expensive zip codes in the United States. Commissioners are calling the idea a transition zone, and the plan would provide housing, food, showers, and even outreach services for some of Miami's homeless population. Quote, in my opinion, this is not an encampment that is going to be a concentration camp, said Commissioner Manola Reyes. Nobody's forcing anybody. Now that's a good sign. When things are not concentration camps. That was all from this article from News Nation Now. And down below, it's there are some points that are brought up by a woman named Esther Alonso, who runs the Outdoor Center on Virginia Key. And she has a lot of concerns with this idea. She brings up the point that, well, it's kind of strange that there's going to be a homeless sort of town, or, you know, a bunch of like homeless people living right next to a summer camp for children. And the island doesn't have a lot of support infrastructure. There's no grocery stores or jobs. And you have to take a 2-mile walk through a mangrove forest to even leave the island. And also the weather's really bad. It gets really humid. It gets really hot. There's a lot of mosquitoes. That's kind of all of Florida, though. So I give it a pass for that. Miami is just kind of like, yeah, let's just like take all the homeless people and just put them on this island where we don't have to think about them. It kind of seems like that's what they're doing here. Um, it does say in this argument, or in this article, that it's right by one of the most expensive zip codes in the United States. I'm sure there's a lot of NIMBYs, not in my backyard people, right? That don't want like affordable housing or anything like that to be built near them. They don't want to have to mix with the plebeians. Um, so let's send them all to an island. You know what? Why can't we send all of our homeless people to islands? There's this great Quora article. Quora, truly one of the most reliable websites there are. The question reads, why not send homeless people to a remote island and let them build their own home, build a new town? The government can supply food, shelter, funding, and building materials. This way they can learn some skills for living at the same time. And the articles and the replies are pretty much ripping them apart. One reply reads, do you know how to build a house to code? Do you know how to run plumbing so it doesn't flood the house or trap methane gas inside? Do you know how to calculate HVAC to properly heat and cool a house? Do you know how to plan a town? As others have asked, is this a voluntary thing or forced? What about the homeless people who already have jobs? Do they quit their jobs so they can live on some remote island? What are the people that are mentally ill? How do they get their medications? Once the town is built, how do they get infrastructure like electricity? How do they get supplies? Yeah, all of those are great points, which leads me to the following proposal. We just send we send all the homeless people to an island, and we don't even send them any supplies. We just let them figure it out. And that way we don't have to think about them at all. Or better yet, we can make them all fight to the death. And it could even be like a TV show. Like we can get TV cameras in there, make all the homeless people fight to death. Then we won't have any more homeless people, and we'll have a good quality television station. Yeah, so maybe I got a little carried away there. Maybe we should just like build like homeless shelters or whatever. That's probably the better solution now that I think about it a little longer. Okay, let's move on to our next article, which is about this walrus, Freya the walrus. As you can see, she's chilling on a boat. This is in happened in Norway, I think. Yeah, there's this walrus that found its way to Norway, which walruses don't usually visit. They mostly stay within the Arctic. Um, but yeah, I guess this walrus made it down to Norway. There were a ton of tourists that would like come super close to this walrus, and this walrus would just like sink boats. Like it would try to climb up onto the boats and just like sunbathe or sleep. But a lot of times it would just end up sinking the boats because it's like a 1,400 pound animal or whatever. And the I guess the government of Norway was like, "Hey everybody, let's stop going near this walrus. This walrus people it became very popular online, and they named the walrus Freya. Um, and the government was like, the officials from Norway were saying people should refrain from getting too close for posing for pictures with the massive 1,400 pound walrus. And but no one listened. People kept bothering this walrus and getting super close to this walrus, and I assume getting their boats sunk in the process. And Norway has made the decision to put down this walrus. They euthanized this walrus. Um, because they determined, I guess, I don't know why they couldn't relocate it. It says in this article that they determined that they couldn't relocate this walrus. And they said it's clear that the public has completely disregarded the recommendation to keep a clear distance to the walrus. Um, and because of potential harm to people was high and the animal welfare was not being maintained, they have determined that they're going to euthanize this walrus because, of course, everything has to be sad. That's usually not how humans disturb animals, right? They just usually destroy their homes and their food sources and pollute everything. They don't usually euthanize them directly. There is this other article that I read. A lot of people are just like, do you really have to euthanize this walrus? Um, there's a quote from this article. This is Norway in a nutshell. Too often we kill the animals we don't like or can't cope with, said a biologist who'd been tracking Freya's journey around in Northern Europe. There's Freya chilling on a boat. This walrus, look at this poor walrus, everyone. Aren't you sad? This walrus is dead now because of this guy. Not specifically that guy, but people like that guy. She has a mustache like walruses do. Look at all these people. You've all killed Freya the walrus. Yeah, this article said Freya had not shown signs of stress, but instead seemed curious about people. The biologist I mentioned earlier, um, Rune A. Um, he criticized authorities for not blocking off the areas where the walrus spent most of the time, or trying to move her, despite fears that she could drown if attempt to tranquilize her failed. Even a failed attempt to move her would have been better than euthanasia, he said. Yeah, there are steps the government could have taken to probably prevent the walrus from. Well, there are steps that the government could have taken to have kept people away from this walrus, and then they wouldn't have had to euthanize her. But instead, they went to the most extreme option because I guess that's the easiest. Also, it's all the tourists' fault as well. You should never go like super close to a wild animal. That's anyone who's not an idiot knows that. Anyways, I guess I guess everything has to be sad. Way to go, humanity. You've messed this up. Way to go. Um, let's move on to our next article, which is not about a walrus, but a seal instead in New Zealand. This seal, which had broken into a New Zealand home that was like 150 meters away from the shore. A New Zealand fur seal, it was. Um, and there's like a family that lives in the house, in the home. And I think, yeah, there's a man and a wife and a couple of kids, I think, that live in this house. The man is a marine biologist, and yet he wasn't home. He was the only one in the family that wasn't home during that time. That's so sad. That like being a marine biologist, a person that could help, and being away while your family is attacked by a seal. Yeah, the seal climbed through the cat door. The family had a cat, who, by the way, was traumatized by this whole idea. It said after they got the seal out of the house, the cat like will refuse to go downstairs because apparently it's traumatized by the seal. This poor cat. As to why the seal went into this house, I think it did mention somewhere. It said, quote, I guess like all teenagers, they don't necessarily make sensible decisions. And that's the only explanation this article gives for the seal breaking into this house. I think it like followed a cat. It followed the cat into the house through the um cat door. There, I guess there was like some sort of confrontation between this cat and the seal in the yard, and I guess the cat retreated through the cat door, and the seal followed. Um, and madness ensues. Great. There's a video somewhere. Let's watch the video. Is this it? No, it's this one. Baby fur seal breaks into New Zealand home.
Okay, let's
just. Great. Let's move on to our next article, which is about a lawsuit that's alleging that Onlyfans bribed Facebook to put a bunch of porn stars on a terrorist watch list. So let's break this down. So there's this list that's managed by the Global Internet Forum for Counterterrorism, which is a nonprofit intended to, quote, stop the spread of mass shooting videos and other terrorist content across social media sites. That was co-founded by Meta, or Facebook. I'm going to call it Facebook because I hate that it's called Meta. It was co-founded by Facebook, Microsoft, Twitter, and YouTube. All right. And how it works is that it only takes one site to add a name to this watch list, and all of the websites above will flag them as a terrorist, and basically it'll shadow ban them on all of those companies, right? The lawsuit alleges that porn stars that use competitors of the website OnlyFans were added to the terrorist watch list because OnlyFans bribed Facebook to do so, right? That's what the lawsuit alleges. Because I don't know what sort of proof they have. It makes, in this article, it mentions that there were quite a few porn star actors who experienced a slowing in social media traffic that was so substantial and dramatic that it could not have been the result of filtering by human reviewers. And the lawyers point out that OnlyFans seems to have a mysterious immunity to this new filtering activity. That's kind of what it said in the article, so I don't know if they have any like concrete proof that this is what happened. It does mention that I'll just read a quote from this article. Quote, according to the Post, the bribes were funneled from Felix International, Onlyfans parent company, through a secret Hong Kong subsidiary and to offshore Philippines bank accounts set up by crooked Meta employees. And of course, Facebook and OnlyFans have denied everything, claiming that the allegations are without merit. Because of course they do. It's very, very strange that these sort of power which these tech companies have to just like destroy your livelihood. It's definitely something to think about. Like if you piss off Facebook, they can just add you to the like if you're like a person who relies on one of these websites, like if you're like some sort of personality or a content creator. I didn't want to have to say that phrase because I find it dumb. If you're a content creator and Facebook doesn't like you, I guess they can just add you to the terrorist watch list and you'll be deplatformed on every social media account, basically. And that is very harrowing to think about. But I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure it'll all work out. I'm sure the government will see this and provide the proper regulation so that this is not abused, right? Right? Okay, let's move on to our next story. Elon Musk fan wants to prove Tesla won't run over children by trying to run over a child. If I would offer one small criticism of this article, I don't think that they're trying to run over the child. They're just seeing if it will run over the child. But yeah, there's a company called the Dawn Project, which was founded by a software engineer called Dan O'Dodd. That they carried out what was described as a, quote, scientific test of the capability of Tesla's full self-driving technology to avoid a stationary mannequin of a small child. And the executive summary said that it had, quote, demonstrated conclusively that the software does not avoid the child or even slow down when the child is in plain view. A Tesla Model 3 equipped with full self-driving software repeatedly struck the child mannequin in a manner that would be fatal to an actual child. The software is demonstrable danger to human life and must be removed from the market immediately, it concluded. Well, there was a person named Omar Quasi, apparently a big Elon Musk fan and a Twitter user. He tweeted to his nearly 130,000 Twitter followers if anyone in the Bay Area would be willing to volunteer their child to, quote, make a point. Essentially, he wants to see if the car will stop for the child or if it'll run them over. But it does say, to Quasi's credit, he said, quote, I promise I won't run them over. Will disengage if needed. Indicating that he would take control of the car if he felt there was any danger. And there was quite a lot of backlash to this because a lot of people felt, I imagine, that he was recklessly endangering a child. That would be my suspicion of why he got so much backlash. But this article goes on. It says, Quasi said, quote, this is very, okay, I'll just read directly from the article. He kept attacking his critics, telling him there was no need to shit your britches. That was a quote, by the way. Quote, there's no need to shit your britches. This is a very serious issue to me. It is not a joke and is not for fun. We plan to run over the child on Saturday. Yeah, but the test was just performed at 5 miles per hour, and the driver was actually the father of the child. This article is from a while ago, so of course the test was already performed by Quasi. This is how it did, right? Quasi's video, while it was still online, first shows 3 tests with child mannequins, followed by one with an adult man standing in the street, and finally one was an actual child. Quote, I trust the system enough that I would trust my kids' lives with them. So I'm very confident that it's going to detect my kids, and I'm also in control of the wheel so I can brake at any time. That was a quote from the child's father, Tad. um, and to Tesla's credit, the Tesla appears to make a full stop near the child without injuring them. Um, but since the video was uploaded, YouTube took down the video because I guess YouTube viewed it as endangering a child, which is against the community guidelines. I can't believe he actually found someone to volunteer their child to stand and test the Tesla's self-driving feature to see if it would stop for their child. But you know what? To their credit, no children were injured. So I guess this is a win for Elon Musk. Okay, great. Let's move on to our next story. 11-year-old boy scammed after a man uses counterfeit $100 bill at lemonade stand, police said. So apparently, wow, there's a lot to process with this. There's an 11-year-old boy. Where was he? He was in Washington State. There's a man that used a counterfeit $100 bill to buy a drink from the child's lemonade stand. And then he asked, of course, for change in real money. So this article says that the boy, police said, used his allowance money to give the man $85 in change. So this man paid $15 for lemonade. Or what must have happened is that he went up to the child. He's like, "Oh, I'd like to buy a lemonade, but I only have 100. Can you make change?" And the boy was like, "Oh, I can only make $85 in change." And the man was like, "Oh, that's fine. I'll pay $15 for lemonade." And yeah, the boy went to a local gas station where he learned the $100 bill was fake. Probably the youngest thief they've ever caught there. And he was all out of his allowance money. God damn. That is sad. But you know what? Maybe this is good because it teaches this boy about how the world works. You gotta check those $100 bills, son. You gotta check the little portrait. Shine it up, hold it up in the light, right? Make sure the portrait's there. Surprised you didn't know that. So you know what? I actually say this is a good life lesson. And he was only scammed out of $85. So, hey, it could be a lot worse. People are scammed for thousands of dollars. But you just don't think that it would happen to a child. I don't know. So many things to unpack here. So little hope that you can have for humanity, right? Let's move on to our next story, which is a different kind of theft. It's more of a corporate theft. Chick-fil-A is asking for volunteers to work for 5 chicken sandwiches per hour. This was like a month ago, so I don't know how it worked out. But in the North Carolina Chick-fil-A, apparently you can volunteer. You can work at the Chick-fil-A for an hour and receive payment in the form of 5 free entrees per 1 hour worked. And obviously there's a lot of people who there was backlash to this. Chick-fil-A is worth $14 billion. I'm sure they can actually pay to their employees. They can actually pay people to work there. They can afford it. There was a manager at the location that did this promotion. His name was Ryan. He said, quote, "What happens with some brands in the community is that they establish a relationship with the community. And as a result, there's an expression of desire from the community to be more of a part of what the brand is doing. We get people all the time that want to be part of what we're doing. This is designed to be an opportunity for that." That's such That's such a manager response. Why are managers all terrible people? At least in my experience. Not every manager, but so many managers are just like insane. How could you even justify this? Um, and the store said in response to a post that it should not be offering volunteer positions. It said, quote, "This is a volunteer-based opportunity, which means people can opt in to volunteer if they think it's a good fit for them. We've had multiple people sign up and enjoy doing it and have done it multiple times. People who sign up for this chose it voluntarily. We are still hiring full-time and part-time team members, so if you're interested in working in our store, we pay $19 an hour." Yeah, I think I would choose getting paid in money if that was an option. Who the hell would choose to volunteer at Chick-fil-A of all places to get 5 sandwiches? Um, if you got paid money, you could probably buy more than 5 sandwiches. I don't know how expensive a Chick-fil-A sandwich is actually. You could probably get paid about the same amount of sandwiches, right? Um, and you could also choose to buy other things. This article also mentions the other controversy that Chick-fil-A had, which is probably the controversy that you think of, which is like the weird anti-LGBTQ statements that like the owner of Chick-fil-A has released, and also they like donate to or they at one time they donated to anti-LGBTQ causes. And this article mentions that it has its own article, which of course I had to look up and read. And there's two big takeaways I got from this Wikipedia article. And the first one is that ever since, well, the whole controversy happened way back in 2012, because it was the owner of Chick-fil-A, or no, it was the chief operating officer, Don Cathy, that was of Chick-fil-A, that went on a radio show and just made his opinions clear that he opposed same-sex marriage, right? Um, and then after this interview with Don Cathy was released, then there was a bunch of people that announced a boycott on Chick-fil-A. And then there was a counter boycott where people like showed up to Chick-fil-A to support Chick-fil-A's views or whatever, to like support Chick-fil-A basically. So there was a counter boycott on it was August 1st, 2012. On August 1st, sales were up like 30% across like all Chick-fil-A's. So I guess the counter boycott won. And I think in all of 2012, I think Chick-fil-A sales were up like 12%. But since then, Chick-fil-A has said like, okay, we're going to stop making political statements. And since then, they have like stopped donating to anti-LGBTQ organizations since this like 2012 fiasco. But like my question is like, well, it seems to be good for business. It seems like this controversy has done nothing but help Chick-fil-A. Why don't they lean into it harder? Why don't they say, we think that all gay people should be stoned? There you go. Chick-fil-A. That's really all I had to say about this. Let's move on to our next article. Yeah, bad news. You've probably heard about this. Like a month ago, Klondike announced that they're getting rid of the Choco Taco. And apparently there was a consumer uproar. People were very upset that they were getting rid of the Choco Taco. Why did they get rid of the Choco Taco? It must have been because sales were pretty bad, right? And if that's the case, and if people are so sad about it, I just need to say that you guys could have like prevented this if you just bought Choco Tacos, and it wouldn't have been a deal. But now they're taking away, and all of a sudden you want a Choco Taco. The hypocrisy, there's like this mentality that I think is like almost innate in like all people, where like if you can't have something, you like want it more than if you can have it, you know? But because of all the outroar, Klondike, this article says that Klondike is thinking about bringing it back. I've never had a Choco Taco, so I don't know. But apparently, the big selling point of a Choco Taco is that like the fudge and stuff is like more like distributed throughout the ice cream. So like if you like a traditional cone, like ice cream cone that has been dipped in chocolate, right? You like the first bite you have contains chocolate. Or like the first couple bites have like the chocolate shell in them, but as you keep eating, well, the chocolate shell is gone. All you have left is ice cream, and you're sad. But the Choco Taco apparently has like the chocolate shell in every bite, and that's the main selling point of the Choco Taco. I mean, I'm on board. I would have a Choco Taco if they ever bring it back. Let's move it to our next story. It's about these splash pads that you see at amusement parks or just like even just like out in public, right? There are these like fountains that spurt up water and kids like to play in them, right? Apparently, there have been diarrheal outbreaks linked to these splash pads. Um, I think there's like these splash pads aren't regulated in the same way that like other like water park attractions are. Um, like they don't have to be maintain the same level of cleanliness or they don't have to apply the same regulations. It says somewhere. Yeah, they knew. Splash pads do not always meet the local, state, territorial, or tribal definition of an aquatic venue and may be exempt from public health codes. This means they are not always regulated, nor are they always required to disinfect the water with germ-killing chemicals. Um, in other words, the water spurting out of these enticing jets could have been filtered through a poopy swim diaper rather than a proper sanitation system. And this article goes on to list a whole bunch of outbreaks that have happened that are related to these splash pads. This happened there were two outbreaks that happened in Kansas. One happened on June 11th, which involved the spread of the Shigella bacteria, which causes a diarrheal disease called shigellosis. The only animal reservoir are non-human primates such as lemurs. They're the only animals you can get Shigella from. This was at a zoo. This outbreak happened, so naturally you'd think, well, all of these kids had contact with these lemurs, right? Somehow, but no. Some of these children, 15 children between the ages of 1 to 15, were not linked to touching or feeding the lemurs. The illness was associated with playing in the splash pad and getting splash pad water in their mouth. Three sick children had to be hospitalized, but they recovered. And on June 18th, another outbreak erupted. This time was norovirus. 6 cases in this outbreak affecting people between 1 and 38. All of the people played in the splash pad and reported getting water in their mouths. I don't know how a 38-year-old got water in their mouths, but you know, we're just gonna go past that. I'm not gonna blame them. Accidents happen, I guess. So yeah, there definitely are like outbreaks that have happened very recently, just a couple months ago. And this article goes on to say that maybe some local health officials are investigating the splash pad's workings. And basically, they found some concerning features that could explain the outbreaks, which included that, quote, water stood in this collection tank into which water drains after spraying users and before it is filtered, disinfected, and sprayed overnight instead of being continuously recirculated, filtered, and chlorinated. The splash pad did not have an automated controller to measure and help maintain the free chlorine concentration needed to prevent pathogen transmission. In addition, no staff member had documentation of having completed standardized operating training. Yeah, and this article also does mention that there was a study in 2010 which was they were studying children's behavior around splashpads, and they found, quote, children wearing diapers, sitting on water jets, and placing their open mouths to the water. Um, so children wearing diapers and sitting on water jets, obviously that can mean that the water comes in contact with feces. Um, so that is quite disturbing to think about. But hopefully the public health officials will consider, um, you know, making it so that they have to be cleaned. Woman impaled by beach umbrella in freak accident. Or well, that's not the title. Beachgoer killed after impaled in the chest by loose umbrella at South Carolina beach. This was in South Carolina. A beachgoer was killed Wednesday after a loose umbrella impaled her in the chest. Yeah, it was blown from its anchoring. Apparently, a lot of umbrellas have big spikes on the end of them to help push them into the ground, push them into the sand. But unfortunately, of course, umbrellas do have a lot of surface area, the large canopy that can, if a strong gust of wind comes, they can rip the umbrella straight out of the ground and apparently kill someone. It says 3,000 people are injured by beach umbrellas every year. You can literally be killed by anything, and that's terrifying. San Francisco man gets red zone parking ticket after curb was repainted while his car was parked. So this man had parked and next to a curb that appeared to be fine next to park next to. It didn't appear to be a red zone. And he parked and he did. I guess he went to his store, and He came back and he noticed there was a ticket on his car, and he had a $180 fine for parking in a red zone. And he looked down at the curb and he saw that the curb had actually been painted red while he was shopping, and he could tell that it was painted red while he was shopping because there was a part of the curb that the painters had missed because his car tire was right next to the curb. So they had to skip part of the curve so that they didn't get his tire wet with paint. And the thing with this ticket is apparently they were actually repainting the curve. The curve was a red zone when he parked there, but the paint was just so faded that you just can barely see it. You can see it here in this image. That you can see that, yeah, it is a red zone, but it is very difficult to see because it's so faded. It's like the universe is conspiring against you at that point. And also everybody just has to be in the right place at the right time, right? The man has to park just at the right time. The painters have to paint the curve at the right time, and the police officer has to come and give them a ticket just at the right time, before the man comes back. There are so many things that have to go wrong for him to actually get a ticket this way. Let's move on to our next story, which is hopefully a little less sad. No, it's not. It is sad. It's about these spotted lanternflies. I think I actually did a story on these a few months ago. Spotted lanternflies are an invasive species in the United States. If you see it, basically you're supposed to kill it. Recent reports indicate the bugs have settled in New York, Canada, Maryland, Virginia, and North Carolina. And now, according to Brian Eshunar, they have migrated over to the Midwest. Great. And the good news is that these spotted lanternflies aren't dangerous to humans or pets. They don't bite or sting, and they're not venomous. They do pose a serious risk to agriculture. They have a diverse palate and can eat over 100 different plant species. But they have their favorites, including the tree of heaven, which is itself invasive species. and also grapevines. So yeah, people in New York are worried about their wineries losing millions of dollars to this pest that is spreading everywhere. Yeah, if you see this, you're just supposed to kill it as soon as you can. This article does also mention a few precautions you could take. You could get like a sticky trap to put on trees. But this article does warn that they can inadvertently trap small animals. So you're supposed to put like a screen layer over the sticky trap. It seems like a lot of work, to be honest. Also, Virginia's Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services has urged the public to change habits so these bug eggs don't get transported. For example, buy firewood from a local source and burn it before all eggs have had a chance to hatch. And the department also wants people to avoid parking their vehicles under trees or near bushes. Which is where the insects lay eggs or stow away to invade a new location. It's very broad. You're not supposed to park under trees or near bushes, but okay, I guess I can try to do that. The best way to kill them is just to stomp on them or crush them. Or you can put them in a container of alcohol, diluted Clorox, or hand sanitizer. Great. Oh, this is just a Google search image with a whole bunch of spotted lanternflies that we can look at. They look real disgusting, in my opinion. I hope I never have to see one of these, but it seems like, based on how they're spreading, it's likely that I'm going to have to see one of these in my lifetime. Just take a good look at this, everyone. If you see this and you live in the United States, just kill it, please. Let's move on to our next story, which is about another invasive species, another winged invasive species. Massive Atlas moth found in the United States for the first time. Here's a picture of it. It's giant. Where is it? It's like only found in the tropics. These Atlas moths. They're only found in the tropics and have never been found. They've never been documented in the United States. So you'd think that like this Atlas moth sighting happened in like a very warm state, right? Like maybe like a tropical state. No, this happened in Washington state. So I don't know how this moth got all the way to Washington. This huge moth, by the way. This is terrifying. Just look at it. It's like horrifying. This moth, this Atlas moth. Well, hopefully it's just like a single one-off individual that managed to get to Washington. And there's not like just a population of these giant Atlas moths living in Washington. That's my hope, at least. Let's move on to our final story. Longtime viewers know that I like to always end these weird news reports with a real banger, and this week is no different. Venice mayor calls out imbeciles surfing Italian city's historic canals. Check out these two dudes. They have these electric surfboards that they're using to just cruise through the canals of Venice, which I guess you can't do. I think Venice is also like banned like kayaks and paddleboards and things like that because the canals are just get too crowded. I could not imagine like living in Venice because I feel like there'd just be so many like annoying tourists that you have to deal with because I feel like a lot of people visit Venice. Let's watch the video of them surfing through Venice. Yeah, and it did say that the mayor actually called out that this is like the mayor's Twitter account, calling them imbeciles. There they go. Don't they look so cool though? I don't know. I feel like the mayor's mistaken. These guys are obviously cool. Well, I mean, that's it.